Thank you for tuning in and checking out Unlucky, a memoir. My name is Kat. Everyone has a story. This one just happens to be mine. One thing I wanted to touch on this week was something that continues to help me in my recovery and something that may have probably saved my life when I got out here to Denver. I think I touched on this story before when I got to Denver, and it felt like taking my own life. I went and checked in at a local hospital, and stigma told them that instead of me being suicidal, they said I was just homeless and looking for a warm place to stay. So they decided it was best to release me in the morning and not hold me on a psych hold. Walking out of that hospital, I made a decision to take my life. I made a horrible decision to spite the doctor who said I wasn't suicidal. I thought maybe I could show her and prove to her that I was, even though that never really mattered. But luckily, the night before, I talked to my brother, and he was my emergency contact. Walking down Broadway in Denver, telling myself I made the worst mistake I've ever made in my life by coming out here. Because at least back in Pennsylvania, even though it was miserable, I was still comfortable. And if I was going to die, at least I would have been comfortable when I died. I continued to walk down the street until my phone went off, and it was a text from my brother. Mind you, at this point, I'm actively looking to take my own life. The text message said, "The hospital just called and told me they threw you out. Maybe you should go check into this free clinic downtown and see if they can help you because they offer mental health and addiction services." I'm actively looking to take my life, and at this point I have a decision to make. I'm looking at my phone, and the clinic's on Stout Street in Denver. I look from my phone and look up at the crosswalk and realize that I'm standing on the corner of Stout and Broadway, about a block and a half from the clinic. Now, what I wanted to touch on in this video was connection and how important that is in recovery and in life in general. There's a really good TED Talk by a gentleman named Johann Hari. It's called "Everything You Thought You Knew of Addiction Is Wrong." And he touches on, in that video, over and over again, connection. He says the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety recovery. It's connection. It's having connection and feeling a part of and belonging that really help. And luckily for me, I at least had one connection left, and that was my brother. And at that moment, when I made the decision that it wasn't my time, because he made that text. If he hadn't made that text, who knows what would have happened. But from that point, inadvertently at first, I started making these connections. When I went to that free clinic on Stout Street, I connected with a therapist who I still continue to see to this day. I also connected with the peer support professionals that worked there. I still continue to see and talk to them till this day. From that point, I ended up in a shelter, and I made some connections there, and I haven't talked to a few of those in a little while. But from that point, I entered a program, and in that program, I made a lot of connections. I connected with a counselor there, who I'm still in contact with, a case manager there, who I'm still in contact with, the chaplain team, who I'm still in contact with. All these people have proved integral in my recovery up to this point. And without their support, I'm not sure where I would have ended up or what I'd be doing. Again, 2 years ago, my brain couldn't wrap around what I'm doing today and what I'm capable of today. So much has happened in the past year and a half that my head spins sometimes when I think about it. there's people from that program that I'm in constant contact with almost on a daily basis. And there's a few that I am on a daily basis. Beyond that, I got involved in what is now my church, what I consider my church. And that's where I never thought I'd ever be again in my life. I was born and raised Roman Catholic, and it never sat well with me. I was never a true believer in Catholicism. And it affected me to the point that I just didn't want anything to do with religion or church ever again. Until I got here, and faith started becoming important to me again. I was reading my Bible. And I remember my brother sent me a message. It was a clip from the church of one of their sermons. And he goes, I'm not sure if you'll enjoy this or like this or if it's your thing, but just give it a try. So I decided to watch it, and I liked the message. We ended up going to that church in person the following week. And again, I really liked the message. And mind you, a few weeks earlier, me and my brother weren't really seeing eye to eye. And I understand that I had made a lot of bad decisions up to the point of coming to Colorado. And I remember getting accepted into that program because when I was walking down Broadway and I said, this is the worst mistake I ever made. I remember when I got accepted to that program about a month after that incident, being on the phone with a friend of mine from St. Louis and telling him that I think this might have been the best decision I've ever made. Understanding that if I would have acted on that emotion that first day, all options are over. I have no choices left to make. So sometimes sitting through that pain, emotion, whatever, sometimes it's necessary to just sit in it for a little bit and get out of your own way and let miracles happen. Because a month later, my attitude was completely reversed. So, needless to say, when I'm in the program, it's your option to go to whatever church you want to on Sunday. So I started going to the same church that my brother sent me the video from. And I started becoming a regular. Every Sunday I didn't miss, unless I went to church with him at the other campus. And at some point along the way, I stopped telling people that, I have to go to church today, too. I'm going to my church today, because I started making connections there. The people in that church supported me and listened to me and believed in me. And I remember there was a turning point where I started considering that community to be part of my family. I used to go to a group there on Wednesday nights. And I remember seeing my pastor there at the entrance. Excuse me. And I hadn't seen him in a couple weeks. And I mentioned that I hadn't seen him in a couple weeks. He goes, 2 weeks ago I was traveling, so I wasn't here. But last week, you weren't here. The fact that he noticed that I wasn't at church, and it's not like some crazy huge congregation, but it's a big group of people. The fact that he noticed that I wasn't there let me know that I'm important enough to notice that I belonged there. I shared this a little bit in the video the other week, that I grew up feeling outside, not a part of, never really being accepted. Having people in my life who I trusted and backed up, who didn't feel the same about me, putting loyalty in the wrong people. Those people just wanted things from me. These people, all they want to do is help me. They want to see me do good and help me do better. So the fact that he noticed I wasn't there really changed my whole view on that church. And that's when I started telling people I was going to my church. In this process, I think it was Easter, this past Easter, where I decided to volunteer at my church. And from that point on, I volunteer every Sunday at my church. And out of nowhere, I was asked, "Hey, Kat, I need a favor. Will you volunteer for kids camp this year?" And immediately I disqualified myself in my mind. I'm like, what do I have to offer? You don't really know who I am. Like, I've been a bad person. I've made mistakes. I don't have anything to offer these kids. And I tried to push it off and tell her I'd look at my schedule. Ultimately, I felt it was put on my heart to do it, so I just signed up and said I was going to do it. But making those connections over this past year, they got to see me for who I am even when I didn't see it. I'm finally a part of. I have a community. I have friends. I have a group of people I consider my family. And I tell people, in your recovery, imagine you're on top of a pedestal. And it's really easy to fall off the sides if you're by yourself. But when you start making connection, building community, the more people you surround yourself with that want to help and not let you fail, it's not so much that you're going to fall off, you go to fall off the edge and they'll catch you. If you have so many people around you, you can't even get to the edge. And I'm realizing how important that was and is. And luckily for me, at the beginning of this story, I still had one connection. But now I have hundreds of people that love to see the good that I do and only want to help me do better. I just told somebody the other day, it's amazing what can happen when you just get out of your own way. Because that's what was tripping me up my whole life. It was me. I kept getting in my own way. And I wear in my back pocket a white bandana. And to me, that signifies surrender. The white flag. Throw my hands up. I'm done fighting. All my best ideas got me into all the trouble that I put myself into. So I start taking suggestions from the people I surround myself with. And the amazing thing is, like, I can look back at all those things that I did in my life that I thought were horrible and made me a bad person, and the pain, the misery, the suffering, the depression, all of that. It's hard when you're on the path to see the path. But all of a sudden, when you can look behind you and you see there was a plan all along, all those things I did in my life brought me to this point to help me do what I'm doing, to help me be the person that I really am. Those experiences put me in position to hopefully help other people. And one of those ways is recording these videos. Another way is being a peer, being an active member in my church and a positive member of the community, which I really wasn't for a long time. I was a detriment to my community. Now people ask me to be a part of. And just like kids camp the other week, like, I was terrified. Like, what do I have to offer? But my faith made me do it. When I showed up, everything went great. And that week was just as much for me as it was for those kids. Because it let me know that with an open heart, it's going to work out. I'm going to be carried through. My faith today lets me know that no matter what I go through, I'm going to make it out the other side. I might come out bruised, battered, bloody, and beaten, but I'll make it out the other side. I was talking to my brother the other morning. He texted me and just asked me how my week was going. It's because that's something now that I do every week. I like to stay in contact, and I explained how it's been a little hectic and a little stressful with the new job, managing a sober living house. And he said, just stick with it. And 6 months from now, it won't even be a thing. And I had to sit and think, and I'm like, yeah, because it's amazing, because my life gets better every day. Like, it really does. But then I thought about it and go, is it my life that's getting better, or just how I react to my life? Because I don't run away and hide anymore. I don't go get high and run away from the feelings. I feel them. Stress or no stress, happiness or pain, joy, misery, whatever it is, I feel it today. And if I'm going through it, I can talk to my brother. I can talk to my friends. I can call my therapist or my counselor or my old pastor or the chaplain back there. I have connection today. I don't have to do this alone. And it's amazing when you realize that you can ask for help and you'll be given help. And the longer you stay on this path doing the right things, you're going to realize people want to help you succeed. When they see that you're doing it with pure intention and just want to be a better person, they don't want to let you fail. So a lot of miracles have happened in my life. And mainly it's because of the community I surround myself with. So the biggest thing I can pass along is get connected in one way or another. Get some positive people around you. Get a community that wants to support you, that's not only going to pick you up, but lift you up. That's probably the biggest thing I can say about my recovery today, is that I have that community of people around me and they support me on a daily basis. I want to thank you all for tuning in, riding along with the story with me, and just listening, and hopefully you get something out of it. Because again, these videos are probably more for me than they are for anybody else. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll catch y'all next week.